So you want to learn a tool that you can use in the comfort of your own home or anywhere really that can help you manage things like anxiety, depression, and PTSD, but can also help you improve your sleep or manage your pain or even identify limiting subconscious beliefs and blocks or help you integrate old traumas. And that isn't even an extensive list. Stay tuned and I'm going to teach you this tool. Hi, my name is Liz. I'm a certified EFT practitioner with a background in holistic nutrition, and my job is to help you identify limiting subconscious beliefs or blocks that are causing you to self-sabotage so that you can finally break up with that and step into your full potential. So what exactly is EFT? EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, but it is more commonly known as tapping, and that is because it involves stimulating manually or tapping on various acupressure points that are run along meridians, and these points and meridians are pulled from Chinese medicine. This method was actually created in the 90s by a man named Gary Craig, but it has since gone on to grow and evolve quite a bit under a different man named Roger Callahan to reflect more of what we know it as today. And in very exciting news, very recently, it was actually scientifically validated as an evidence-based treatment for things like anxiety, depression, and PTSD in the Frontiers of Psychology journal, which is a very well-renowned and respected journal in the field of psychology. Now, we had lots of science and studies to back it up before, but this was the first one to actually validate it as a treatment as opposed to just a tool, putting it on par with things like talk therapy, and it is one of the most scientifically studied methods or tools in the field of psychology. I, as well as many other practitioners, like to refer to those simply as a stress reduction technique, and that is because of its proven ability to help downregulate the nervous system and lower the stress hormone cortisol. Now, you might be asking, how does tapping on my face and body help me lower cortisol? Or how does tapping on my face and body help me process old emotions or old traumas and things like that? Well, to be perfectly honest, the exact mechanism of how is still up for debate. While it has been scientifically proven to be effective in the arenas that I've already mentioned, the exact how were unclear. Now, before you go and write off the whole tool because of this, this is actually a very common phenomenon. For example, you are most likely familiar with a very common pain medication, ibuprofen. Now, ibuprofen was actually discovered in the early 1960s, and it was proven effective to help manage pain. But the why of it wasn't discovered until much later. It wasn't until the early 1970s that the role of prostaglandins play in things like pain and inflammation was discovered. And it was even later than that that it was discovered that ibuprofen actually works by stopping cells from releasing prostaglandins, therefore making sure that the signal of pain never actually makes it to the brain. So we knew in the early 1960s that ibuprofen helped manage pain, but we didn't learn until closer to the 80s the why and the mechanism of exactly how. So all of this to say that the understanding that something does work often precedes the understanding of how it works. But that doesn't mean we're not working with some pretty good theories and evidence for tapping. The most popular, valid, and likely probable explanation to how tapping works actually comes from a series of studies done where brains were scanned while tapping sessions were taking place. And from those scans, we understand that while we're tapping, we're actually sending a calming signal to a part of the brain called the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is the brain's fear center and is responsible for turning on our fight or flight response or activating our nervous system when it senses a threat. So when we downregulate or calm the amygdala, we're actually telling it to turn the nervous system back into a parasympathetic state, which is more commonly known as rest and digest. It just is our neutral, relaxed state. And as a result, our stress hormone, cortisol, lowers in the body. Okay, so that might explain cortisol, but how does tapping help us process old memories, traumas, and things like PTSD? And this might be one of my favorite applications and my favorite thing to witness in others as well as my own experience because of tapping. I understand now that memories are not in fact static. It's not like pulling out a photograph, looking at it, and then putting it back completely unchanged. That when we do recall a memory, we're actually inserting new data into it based on what is going around in our external and internal environments at the time that we are thinking of it. So when we reflect on a memory with tapping, we're actually inserting new calming information into that memory, allowing us to break that emotional connection to it and just help signal to the brain, the amygdala, and the nervous system that we are in fact safe from this memory. Remembering now that the brain can't actually tell the difference between a memory, your imagination, or a real lived current experience. The process of what happens to your nervous system, the release of hormones and neurochemicals in the body are the same regardless if you're experiencing this thing in real time or if you're simply remembering or imagining something to happen. Now, you've likely experienced this before. If there is something that stresses you out that you are thinking about, for example, if you have a fear of public speaking and you know you have a speaking engagement coming up and you're thinking about that event that is not currently taking place, your heart rate can still pick up, you can still start to sweat, and you can still feel nervous, even though you're not standing on that stage. So tapping basically takes advantage of this process in the best way possible. So it helps when we're remembering a distressing event or even imagining a distressing future event. While tapping, we are sending the calming signals to help these two things kind of wire together, fuse together, so that the brain is associating something that was once distressing with a signal of calm. And it is taking advantage of a process called neuroplasticity. You may have heard the phrase, neurons that fire together, wire together. This is essentially the process we're taking advantage of with tapping. Sorry, I know this is a lot. I am a little bit of a nerd when it comes to the science and mechanics of how this all works. I always say that I'm a little bit science and a little bit woo, so you can expect both of those things from videos from me on this channel. Okay, so now that you have an understanding of how and why it might work, let's talk about how you can use it at home. So what you need to do is learn some basic points. There are many more than the few I'm about to teach you, but for the purposes of getting started with tapping, these are the most important to learn. While tapping, it doesn't matter what side of the body you're tapping on. You can tap on one side or the other or both when applicable. We want to be using a firm but gentle pressure. That means that we don't want it to hurt, but you do want to be able to feel it. We generally tap on each location at least 5 to 7 times before moving on to the next point. But that being said, there are no hard and fast rules when it comes to tapping. If one spot feels better while you're tapping on it and you just want to stay there for a little while, by all means do so. There is a formula to tapping, so to speak, but this practice is also very intuitive. So I just want you to not get in your head too much about it. You really can't screw this up. While tapping, we start each session on the side of the hand. Now again, you can use one side of the hand or the other. You can even tap them both together, whatever feels best for you. From here, I like to move to the top of the head. Now you might see other practitioners go straight from the side of the hand to the eyebrow point. Neither of them is wrong. Again, don't get too in your head about it. It's just a personal preference for me that I like to start from the top of the body and work my way down. So in my practice, I move from the side of the hand to the top of the head, which is basically, if you've ever worn a hairband, right where that hairband would be, but at top and center. From here, we move to the eyebrow point, again on either side, and this is where the arch of your nose meets your eyebrow. Now to the side of the eye, which is along your eye socket bone, not all the way at your temple, okay? You're trying to find the bone to the eye socket and tapping there. Under the eye, again, along that eye socket bone. Under your pupil if you were looking straight. Under the nose is the most self-explanatory point. You can tap it like this if using your tips of your fingers is uncomfortable. Under your mouth is in this little divot here between your lip and your chin. Again, you can use the side of your finger if that's more comfortable, or the tips of your fingers. Again, we're just finding whatever works best for us here. Now your collarbone point, you want to find your clavicles, and they meet kind of in the center. There's a little divot. Okay, so on either inner clavicle bone, you're going to go down approximately an inch and then out approximately an inch. And you'll find there's kind of a fleshy part with maybe it feels a little less bony here. That's what we're looking for. And then we're going to go under the arm, which if you wear a bra is about where your bra strap would sit. If you don't, it's about a hand's width below the armpit. And lastly is a point that technically isn't considered part of the basic tapping recipe, but it is a point I use in almost every single one of my sessions. So while you're tapping with me, feel free to incorporate this one right away. And it is the wrist points. And I like to just bang my wrists together versus tapping, but you could easily tap on either one. And you're just tapping right where your hand meets your arm there. Okay, I bang my wrists together. I just find that feels better. And that's really it. You are already tapping. It really is that simple. Stay tuned because I'll be posting a follow-up video where I teach you how to actually take these points and create your own tapping sequence so that you can use it on things you want to work at home. Thanks so much for watching and happy tapping.